Welcome to the Rocky and Meisty Show presented by Jew Stool. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Let's get right into it.
That's what I think.
That is a hot take.
Tell you what, Morty, I'm picking the Lions to upset here, and I'll tell you why.
Oh, Rocky.
Ridiculous answer. If the Ravens had J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Marcus Peters, L.J. Fort, they'd be the best team.
No, I'm completely missing the boat on it. You're at the wrong dock. Meisty, what do you think about this game? The Bengals got a shot?
I have here written down in my pamphlet, I have Bengals 35, Chiefs 30. I'm sorry to say it. If Bengals are going to the Super Bowl, they're the hottest team in football right now.
They playoffs with Jared Goff already. They made the Super Bowl with Jared Goff already. They didn't need Matthew Stafford to make the playoffs. They had that taken care of already. They got Matthew Stafford so that they can win these big games.
The most insane, crazy thing that we have never, ever seen before. Granted, they had 2 timeouts, but
I'm curious.
We want to talk about legacy-defining plays and legacy-defining throws. 13 seconds, and you get the ball in field goal range. That is absolutely insane.
Okay, and guess what? In basketball, you use a basketball. In football, you use a football.
Moving on to the NFC East. We did the AFC East last time, so we'll have the NFC East. And actually, Morty can jump in on this one for his Eagles when we get there. So wonderfully, we can have 3 people involved. Last time it was Micey and I, and I'll be Yehuda and I, and we'll jump right into it. The most underrated player in each team in the NFC East. And we'll start off with the team that has a new name, right? It was voted upon by the fans, I think, and the Washington Commanders. So who is the most underrated player? Are the Washington Commanders. That's going to take some time to get used to. I tell you, I still call the Chargers the San Diego Chargers sometimes, and I still call the Raiders the Oakland Raiders sometimes, and the Rams St. Louis Rams. So these things are just adjustments. Absolutely. And we already had to transition to them being the football team, and now we have to transition again. So it's asking a lot from us. It really is, especially from us podcasters.
Lots of work. Too much work.
It's way too much work. Way too much mental capacity of mine. So who's the most underrated player? So I'll tell you who mine is, Yehuda. Charles Leno. Now, actually, you'll be surprised to know. You'll be surprised to know that the Commanders had one of the better running games last year. And, sort of a duo in the back, and had some injuries back there. But the run blocking was always stellar. And Charles Leno was their best pass blocker by far. According to PFF, he was actually the second best pass blocker in football, which is pretty impressive. You never think of the Commanders that have, one of the best at any position, right? What if I asked you a trivia question, what do the Commanders have that's the best at any position? You'd be like, they don't have any player on the team that's the best at their position. Charles Leno is one of the best at his position. So he obviously spearheaded one of the better running games in football and gave Heineke and Fitzpatrick and all those guys that played last year for the Commanders some time. And it's going to be important for the Commanders to, have a good offensive line, at least an average offensive line, because they're going to have a big revolving door there at quarterback. Even if they think Tyler Heineke is the guy, he's a young quarterback. They're going to need to give him some time in the pocket. And he's not like a Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson type where he can sort of create his own time. So those young quarterbacks do need more time in the pocket. Offensive line is going to be crucial. And Charles Leno Jr. is my guy. Who you got?
So I don't know if you were looking in, through the screen of my camera at my notes, but I know we were talking about this before about how we may have the same guy for the Cowboys. But
oh, no.
My most underrated player on the Washington Commanders is Charles Leno Jr. as well. He ranks a top 10 pass block win rate according to ESPN, and he is a solid offensive tackle. Like you said, you don't think of Washington having anything elite, but their O-line is pretty elite. It's top 10, probably could be closer to top 5 pass blocking unit, and a bunch of their guys. Even Eric Flowers was resurrected his career there because we knew him as used to be a waving door, people just coming through sacking the quarterback. But he's been playing a little better. But Charles Leno is one of the best according to PFF and according to ESPN, one of the best pass blockers in the game. So he is someone just came over from the Bears. Was with the Bears for like 6 or 7 years. And, it's like an older player, not someone you think of as really good, but he's really solid and he's pretty elite. So he's also my pick. So I think great minds again, and it may happen again later on.
It begs the question, how underrated is a player if we both choose him as our underrated player? But nonetheless,
we're digging deep in the right places.
Right, we're digging deep. This is our segment. We'll have to move on. You won't get much Washington Commanders talk on a podcast that talks about every team, but there you go. We hit you, Washington fans. So let's move on to the Cowboys. We'll start with you this time. I hope we don't cross paths here, but who you got?
Okay, so my guy, who I think, we did not discuss this beforehand. We
did not. Surprise to me.
My guy is Tony Pollard. the backup running back who should be.
I'm safe.
Oh, you are safe? Wow. Good. He should be the starting running back for the Cowboys. And this is as someone who does not hate on Zeke as much as other people do, because I remember watching games with people who watch Zeke take a 3-yard plunge into the O-line and fall down and are just yelling at the screen like, give Pollard the ball more. But I was as a Zeke fantasy manager, I was interested and invested in him, and I didn't think he's as bad as people think he is. He was probably a little injured, but Tony Pollard is clearly better. They use him better. They scheme him up better. And he was a top 5 running back according to DVOA. He was top 4, one of the best running backs by per play according to Football Outsiders. And Tony Pollard is more explosive. He's faster. I think he did tear his Achilles or something in that Eagles game, or he tore meniscus. I don't remember. So hopefully it doesn't slow him down necessarily. But he's definitely going to be touching the ball more. If they can somehow offload Zeke's contract, I don't think they will. But if Jerry talks to Zeke and says, we're going to give you less touches, we're going to give Tony the ball more, I think it'll greatly benefit the Cowboys offense, make them even more explosive, because Tony Pollard, I mean, people know about him and people talk about how he should take the roles, but he's underrated with how good he really is and how explosive he truly is.
Yeah, I drafted him in fantasy, Tony Pollard, actually. So yeah. I liked it. But obviously, I'm not going to choose a running back probably for any segment. So
that's true. I should have known.
Right, you should have known. So when you think about the Cowboys passing game, you think about Dak Prescott. You think about Amari Cooper. You think about CeeDee Lamb. You think about Michael Gallup. Right, great. By the way, Michael Gallup's also a very underrated player, but that's not going to be my pick. Dalton Schultz, the one consistent in that Cowboys passing game, because everyone else is either injured or this happens or that happens. And Dalton Schultz was an incredibly crucial part of this Cowboys offense. People love this Cowboys passing game, which was a very dominant passing game. Over 100 targets this year, 63 receptions last year, 78 receptions this year. The numbers just kept on going up. 615 yards receiving last year, 808 receiving yards this year. And breaks tackles, yards after catch. He's a great route runner. He's a great weapon in the middle of the field for Dak Prescott. And Prescott's relied on him in a lot of third down situations, a lot of crucial situations. So you don't think of him as such a crucial part of the passing game. We have so many playmakers. But it's funny, in a team that has a lot of playmakers on the outside, oftentimes the thing that glues it all together is that tight end in the middle. And that's another topic for another time, by the way. I think tight ends are extremely underrated, especially the prototype you have for tight end nowadays. They are physically a little more like receivers, right? They're a little quicker, a little faster. But they still have the size, and you can get them for so much cheaper. And they can block, right? But you can get them for so much cheaper, and there's so much less of a market for them. So I'm going to go with Dalton Schultz for this one. And the next team, fly, Eagles, fly. So we can get Mark's view on this, because his Eagles have entered the building. So what do you think, Mark? Who's the most underrated player on the Philadelphia Eagles?
Producer Mark.
So underrated, I can't speak for stats, but someone that I've seen this season that I really like, Quez Watkins. Hasn't gotten so many targets, but he's great. He's got great hands, especially for a new QB like Jalen Hurts, who every pass is not necessarily going to be on target. He's great hands on him. He can go up and get the ball. Great route running. He gets a lot of these just like QB scrambles. He's good at getting open. He knows how to run a route, and even passes behind the line of scrimmage. He's quick on his feet. He's fast. He can get across the line, get the first down. I think he's someone who has huge potential going forward. The Eagles just have to utilize him correctly. He needs more targets, and I think going forward we're going to see a lot more use. Hopefully, we'll see a lot more usage and a lot more production out of him.
Listen, anyone who stood next to Jalen Reagor and JJ Arcega-Whiteside. But yeah, he is solid. He is solid.
He's a good. I also want to say 62 targets this year. So that's a significant amount for essentially number 3 receiver, right? Yeah. And 43 receptions. And the numbers went up compared to his rookie year. So, if those numbers continue to develop, they continue to feature him in the offense. I like that a lot. But one guy I'm going to go is on the defensive side is Avonte Maddox. He's well known among the Eagles circles, at least. But if you're not an Eagles fan, you just know Darius Slay, right? You don't necessarily know his counterpart, Avonte Maddox. But we're talking about a guy that allowed 1 touchdown in coverage this year and 7.4 yards per completion. Just an incredible number. Now, he's not like the traditional starter. He sort of rotates in and out of the lineup. But when he's on the field, he's a great general in the middle, and he's a great cover. He's a great cover DB. And honestly, the Eagles have some good DBs back there. Like, it's underrated. The Eagles have one of the better secondaries in football. The Eagles have one of the better rosters in football, to be honest. There's just some things they have to shore up, no question. But I do love Avonte Maddox, and I think he's going to be a big-time player for a while.
Yeah, the Eagles they're doing a great job in their rebuild to make the playoffs. As a 7 seed in their first year with a new coach, new everything, they are doing a good job. And trading away their older players, they did a good job trading away Zach Ertz, their tight end, and leading them to my most underrated player on the Eagles, Dallas Goedert. A lot of people do know about him from fantasy, but because tight end is such a shallow position, but people don't realize how good he actually is. I remember that Jets game where obviously they were playing the Jets, but he was just catching touchdown after touchdown, and that was with Gardner Minshew. That was with the backup quarterback, and he was just dicing them up. And Dallas Goedert actually, according to DVOA, was the most valuable tight end, more than Mark Andrews, more than Travis Kelce, more than George Kittle. And Mark Andrews just had one of the his best season. So in DYAR, which is a whole other stat that's total value, but this was Dallas Goedert had more value per play, and he had almost 15 yards per catch. And you could see that he's starting his ascent as the new top tight end in Philly with Zach Ertz gone. Because we were talking about in fantasy, could they support Goddard and Ertz at the same time? But now it doesn't have to be that. Goddard can be the man and be the guy catching passes from Jalen Hurts. But another guy who I wanted to focus on is Miles Sanders, and I don't know if he's super underrated because again he's a big famous running back.
Boo, 2 running backs. Boo,
Yeah.
boo.
It's popular in the fantasy football circles. But he actually, and even I didn't think he was that good. But looking at his advanced stats, he is top 7 in DVOA, and he has 5.5 yards per carry. Like, it seems like every coaching staff that he's working with just does not like him and does not want to give him the ball. But every time he touches the ball, he's just super efficient. And I remember him against the Ravens in 2020, where he was like 3-4 yards per carry here, but then he just explodes for that 80-yard run out of nowhere. And so you see he has that explosive ability, and you see he is efficient with the ball in his hands, and he just doesn't get touches. It's very weird, and he does get injured a little bit, but maybe he's not a good pass blocker. Like, maybe he has, the coaches don't like that he has issues staying in the field, but he is efficient with the ball in his hands, and I think that if he got the ball more, you would see. You could see how, his ceiling and how good he can truly be. And I was someone who did not think that Miles Sanders is that good. And I don't necessarily think you should draft him in fantasy for this reason, because he gets a little injured. Coaches don't seem to like him for some reason. But if he was truly unleashed, he could be really, really good and a really solid running back. So they're my co-underrated players on the Philly Eagles.
Just a note about Miles Sanders. I don't know anything about this coaching thing, and if coaches don't like him, I think it's the fact that first of all, he is injury prone, so they probably tend not to use him as much as they would like to. But the other 2 running backs, the other 2 are very decent for backup running backs with Boston Scott and
Howard
and Howard. Yeah, they're very dependable, like, backup running backs. Secondary to Miles Sanders. So it's been a very interesting run game in Philly, watching them split it between 3 different running backs. But I think they should be using him a lot more. I agree with you.
I keep saying they're like the Diet Ravens. Jalen Hurts is a worse Lamar Jackson. Dallas Goedert is a worse Mark Andrews. Well, in some ways, but
did you say Devontae Smith is a worse Marquise Brown?
Yes, I mean he's probably better than Marquise Brown. He's probably better than Marquise Brown. He was a little injured, but he's very small. But either way, they have a worse run game than the Ravens' peak run game. But a running quarterback, a small wide receiver 1, some crappy backup receivers or 2-3 receivers, a solid tight end, and a run game that uses 4 or 5 guys, where they use Howard, Scott, Sanders, and the quarterback and Jordan Howard. So it just seems like Diet Ravens.
Maybe it's something about these bird teams.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm getting suspicious over here. And look at the Cardinals.
Yeah, they're kind of close. So. It just seems like they're like the Great Valley Ravens, but they just have such an efficient running game with everyone just touching the ball and getting 75 to 80 yards, and everyone everyone doing well, but it all just racks up and they get 170 yards a game. But yeah, Miles Sanders needs more touches though.
My concern with the Eagles running game is that you saw this with the Ravens running game where it peaked and then got a little worse, was still really good. And then this year it got a little worse, was still really good, but still gets progressively worse. So, really good running games, when they're really good for 1 year, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to carry that into the next year. Even if they're a top 5 running game, they were by far the best running game in football this year, especially when you take into account the stretch run of the season. So I just think there's some regression to be seen there. But I definitely think they're set up nicely. They do a lot of good things with that offense. And I like Jalen Hurts as a player. He just has to continue to develop as a passer. He really is a mini Lamar Jackson in a lot of ways, right? And even his trajectory is very similar, but not as prolific as a rusher, but a very prolific rusher.
Yeah.
He was rated, I think, PFF's 15th best quarterback this year. So that's very good for his second year. If he continues that track, then the Eagles are in business. That's what I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, to make a playoffs in the first year of your rebuilding process is a good sign. So let's go into a team. What?
No, I was just saying, if the diet team made it to the playoffs, I don't know what that says.
Right.
The regular team.
Right, and the Ravens didn't even make it. So
listen. The diet team plays in the NFC East, not in the North, but Joe and a team that they were start rolling out a grocery baggers at cornerback and safety at the end of the season. But yeah.
Okay, well, I'll tell you who's not a grocery bag on the New York Football Giants, because there are a few of them. And I will say about this about the Giants. They're not a good team. I'm just going to be frank with you. But I will say that Daniel Jones, for the first quarter of the season, was like one of the best quarterbacks in football. Honestly, and you'll tell me, well, it was the first quarter of the season. Who cares? That's true. But, we'll take anything we can get with the Giants.
Yeah, you just want to see something.
It's something to hang your hat on. This organization ever since Eli Manning led to the Super Bowl in 2011, it hasn't been a well-ran organization. There's no question. And you see that up front. Like I focused on the offensive line already with the Commanders. And honestly, the Giants pass blocking unit was of the worst in the league last year. Like if you're going to blame Daniel Jones, which yes, he has his faults and he had his faults last year. He has no protection. He has no time. And in fact, Matt Skura, I'm sure you'll be familiar with that name, Yehuda, from the Ravens, was awful this year. I mean, man, according to PFF, a 29.5 passing grade. That is just off. I mean, average is 70. So that's 40 points below average, just to put into perspective. One guy that was a bright spot was Andrew Thomas. The Giants really don't have good run blocking or pass blocking, particularly pass blocking. But Andrew Thomas was a bright spot for them. He was top 20 tackle this year, according to PFF, 90.4 pass blocking grade. I mean, I'm sorry. He had a 82.1 pass blocking grade this year, which is very good, very respectable, top 10 in the league. And actually has the best receiving grade for the tackles on the Giants. He can catch the ball. He can block. I mean, what more can I say about the Giants? Need whatever they can get. Listen, if their offensive lineman can catch, then line them up there in the slot. You know what I'm saying? Like, honestly, that's another thing. Why don't teams utilize the offensive lineman more often in the red zone, like in short yardage situations? Like, line him up as a tight end. Nobody knows he's there. Put Andrew Thomas out there and let him run into the end zone, a 2-yard, little toss. I don't know. But Andrew Thomas is a good player, and the Giants are going to have to get one or two more Andrew Thomases up front. Like, they're just going to have to, like I always say, creep back towards average. Like, Andrew Thomas has potential to be a top-notch tackle in this league. If they can get one or two other serviceable guys to protect Daniel Jones, they have to shore up a lot of things on the defensive side, get some playmakers. There's a long way to go for this team. But obviously, offensive line is a very important thing. Pass blocking, tackles, edges, and they have one of those locked up. So that's one glimmer of hope for you Giants fans out there. I will say that.
Very small, but it's there.
Very small. Before we go to the outro, I wanted to sing it myself because it's so catchy. And now you'll hear it yourself. Everyone's like, what the heck is this guy doing? Singing random songs. But you'll hear it yourself. Thank you for joining us, everyone. NFC East is in the books. We're gonna get to the AFC North next, which is obviously an exciting one for us. And all of them are exciting, but that's even particularly more exciting for us. We'll get to the AFC North. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Remember to subscribe, Spotify, and YouTube, and have a great day.